Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare.
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenbandho Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute तप्त कंचन गौरंगी राधे वृंदानेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये बोलो श्री राधे गोलोकानंद भगवान की जय। बोलो श्रीमद् भागवतम की
जय।
हरे कृष्णा एवरीवन।
हरे कृष्णा एवरीवन।
हरे कृष्णा।
हरे कृष्णा।
सो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल आज राजश्री जी हैं एटलांटा से। शी इज जॉइनिंग आवर श्रीमद् भागवतम सत्संग ग्रुप। सो वेलकम राजश्री जी।
जय श्री कृष्ण गजेंद्र जी, धन्यवाद।
Sure. And then we have Anjali ji from Florida. She has joined us before a few times. So Anjali ji, again, welcome back.
Jai Shri Krishna, Gajendra ji. Thank you.
Yeah. And Anjali ji is from Florida. Rajashri ji is in Atlanta, right? We have Anil ji from Boston, joins us from Boston. And then we have Prem sir, Reena ji, Mayur. They are all in Raleigh, North Carolina. So we have everyone joining from different places and coming together. So जैसा कि हम लोगों ने देखा, first we do the round of chanting. वो श्रीला प्रभुपाद की खुद की आवाज में chanting है, so it's really so nice to do that chanting along with Srila Prabhupada's voice, because chanting is where the vibrations are. So after that हम लोग श्रीमद् भागवतम पढ़ते हैं. So far we have read 7 skans, 7 cantos, right? So as you can see, how many cantos are there in Srimad Bhagavatam? 12 cantos, right? 12. It's 12 books. So we have been reading it for last almost 3 years. We have completed up to canto 7. Yeah. And there are total, do you know how many shloks are there in Srimad Bhagavatam?
18,000. So
18,000 shloks are there. Like in Bhagavad Gita, we have 700 shloks, right? Bhagavad Gita is spoken by Lord Shri Krishna himself, as we all know. It has 700 shloks. And Srimad Bhagavatam is the katha about Bhagwan, right? All different altars of Bhagwan. And it's the most greatest, purest Puran, Srimad Bhagavatam, right? Which is compiled by Vedas ji, right? It's supposed to be the compilation of all the Vedas and Purans. Yeah, that's Srimad Bhagavatam. And it has 332 adhyayas. Like you have 18 adhyayas in Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam has 332 adhyayas. Yeah. So far we have read up to 7. It doesn't matter, like we can start anywhere. And again, always we can go back and restart. But today we are going to start with 8th canto, yeah, which is about the withdrawal of the cosmic creations. So again, as you can see, in this canto, there are 24 adhyayas. Different cantos have had like different numbers of adhyayas, like some at 50, 20, 30, whatever, different, depending on the subject of that canto. This one is the withdrawal of the cosmic creations. And it talks about the various Manus. As we know, we are all Santan of Manu. And this one will describe all different Manu's avatar, and we'll talk more in detail about it, right? So we'll start with chapter 1 and the shlok first. Anilji?
Yeah. Sri Rajovacha Swayambhuvasyeha Guru Vanshoyam Vistarachutaha Yatra Vishwasrajam Sargo Manunanyan Vadasva Naha. King Parikshit said, O my Lord, my spiritual master, now I have fully heard from your grace about the dynasty of Swayambhuva Manu. But there are also other Manus, and I want to hear about their dynasties. Kindly describe them to us. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, yeah. So King Parikshit Maharaj said, and do you know whom Parikshit Maharaj is talking to?
कृष्ण के पोते थे।
सुखदेव स्वामी।
Right. लेकिन जो परीक्षित महाराज बात करें सुखदेव गोस्वामी जी से, because Sukhdev Goswami ji is reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj, right? So if you remember, Parikshit Maharaj only had 7 days in this materialistic world because a snake had the bite of the snake, right? So Parikshit Maharaj knew he only has 7 days. So he was very lucky that he knew he has 7 days. So he went to the Ganga Tat. All the Devatas came there, and Sukhdev Goswami ji himself, who is son of Ved Vyas ji, right, was reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj. So in last few cantos, we have read like how different Manus, and then we read about all the descendants of Shambhu Manu, and then we were reading about Narsingh Bhagwan, right? Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruv Maharaj, Bhishma Pitama, so many things we read about, right? So now what Parikshit Maharaj is asking Sukhdev Goswami ji is, he wants to hear about other Manus as well. Now, as we know, we are all Santan of Manus, right? And do we remember how many Manus appeared in one day of Lord Brahma?
14 Manus.
14 Manus, yeah. So it is mentioned that one day of Lord Brahma, which is how long one day of Lord Brahma is, do we know? Right? So it's 4,032,000,000 years is one day of Lord Brahma. It's mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam that one day of Lord Brahma is 4,032,000,000 years, right? In that one day, 14 Manus appear. The first Manu in this day of Lord Brahma, in the current day of Lord Brahma, was Shambhu Manu. Lord Brahma himself is called Shambhu, and the first Manu is Shambhu Manu. Current Manu is 7th Manu, right? Just to get an idea. So current Manu is 7th Manu. So we are all Santan of the 7th Manu. I don't know if anyone knows the name of the current Manu. So that's Vivasvat Manu, yeah? Vivasvat Manu is the current. We are all Santans of Vivasvat Manu. And so far what we have read is the Katha about Shambhu Manu, who is the first Manu. And what Parikshit Maharaj is saying, but there are also other Manus, yeah? Manu Ananya, right? Other Manus, and Parikshit Maharaj wants to hear about their dynasties. So that's what Parikshit Maharaj is asking. Parikshit Maharaj is asking Sukhdev Goswami, yeah? So we'll continue reading. Shlok. Reena ji?
मन्वन्तरे हरिर्जन्म कर्माणि च महीयसः गृह्णन्ति कवयो ब्रह्मस्थाने नो वद शृण्वताम्. O learned Brahman, Sukadeva Goswami, the great learned persons who are completely intelligent describe the activities and appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead during the various Manvantaras. We are very eager to hear about these narrations. Kindly describe them. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. It's mentioned, right, that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has different varieties of incarnations, including the Guna avatars, Manvantars and Leela avatars and Yuga avatars. So different kinds of avatars, right? And what Parikshit Maharaj is asking is to describe the Manvantar, right? The Manu avatars. So, Anjali ji पढ़ेंगे?
Sure. यद्य यस्मिन् अनन्तरे ब्रह्मा भगवान् विश्वभगवान् कृतवान् कुरुते कर्ता हे अतिथि नगाते देव. O learned Brahmana, kindly describe to us whatever activities the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who created this cosmic manifestation, has performed in the past Manvantaras, is performing at present, and will perform in the future Manvantaras.
Hare Krishna. Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
So, what Parikshit Maharaj is asking is describe the past, current, and also the future Manu avatars, right? So, he says Atir, Ate, Naga, and Adya. Adya is the past. So, that's what Parikshit Maharaj is asking to Sukdev Goswami ji. It's a nice purport, so we are going to read this. Mayur?
In Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said that both he and the other living entities present on the battlefield had existed in the past. They existed at present, and they would continue to exist in the future. Past, present, and future always exist, both for the Supreme Personality of Godhead and for ordinary living entities. Nityo Nityanam, Chetanas Chetanam, Katha Upanishad 2.2.13. Both the Lord and the living entities are eternal and sentient. But the difference is that the Lord is unlimited, whereas the living entities are limited. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the creator of everything, and although the living entities are not created but exist with the Lord eternally, their bodies are created, whereas the Supreme Lord's body is never created. There is no difference between the Supreme Lord and his body, but the conditioned soul, although eternal, is different from his body. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. So, a couple of important things which are mentioned here is the Supreme Lord, right? The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna, and all the living entities, which we are, right? We are the living entities. We have always been existing in the past, in present, will continue to exist also in the future. The difference is the Lord is, of course, unlimited, and we already know that we are definitely very limited, right? And one important thing which is also mentioned here is there is no difference between the Supreme Lord and his body, right? The Supreme Lord Shri Krishna has the spiritual body, and there's no difference in his name, body, and himself, right? That's one absolute. Whereas we are conditioned soul because our soul gets conditioned when we touch the material world, right? So even though the soul is eternal, right, we have a body which is different than the soul, right? So that's what is mentioned here. So continue to read. राजश्री जी पढ़ेंगे आप?
कोशिश कर सकती हूँ
आराम से.
श्री ऋषि रुवाच मनवोस्मि नवेतिताः षट्कल्पे स्वयंभूवादयः आद्यस्ते कथितो यत्र देवादीनां च संभवः. Sukadeva Goswami said, in the present Kalpa, there have already been 6 Manus. I have described to you Swayambhu Manu and the appearance of many demigods. In this Kalpa of Brahma, Swayambhu is the first Manu.
Hare Krishna. Yeah? So as we know, Sukadeva Goswami ji is reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, and he said in present Kalp, right? That Kalp is the day of Lord Brahma, which is 4,032 million years, has 14 Manus, right? Has already been 6 Manus. So ours is the 7th Manu. We are like in the middle of this day of Lord Brahma. And I don't know if you remember, in one Manu, there are 71 Yuga cycles, right? There are 14 Manus, 1 Manu, 71 Yuga cycles. What is a Yuga cycle? How many Yugas are there?
4.
Four.
4.
Right? What are those yugs?
Satyug,
Satyug,
Dwapar,
Treta Yug,
and
Dwapar Yug,
Kali.
and Kali Yug.
Right. Yeah. So we have Satyug, Dwapar Yug, Satyug, Treta Yug, Dwapar Yug, and Kali Yug. Right. So
Kali
those
Yug.
4 yug. Right. So such cycles, it happens in a cycle. Right. So you have Satyug, then you have Treta Yug, then Dwapar Yug, and the Kali Yug. Such cycles are 71 such cycles. And there is for example, the Kali Yuga is 432,000 years. Yeah. Satyug, the Dwapar Yuga is 864,000 years. Okay. Then you have Treta Yuga, which is 1.2 million something years. And then you have Satyug, which is 1.6 million something. So total, all yugas is around 4.2 million years. Yeah. Those 4.2 million years times 71. That's the age of one Manu. Yeah. That's the age of one Manu. And such 14 Manus appear in one day of Lord Brahma. So you can just think about how everything happens, right? And in the present Kalp, one day of Lord Brahma, there have already been 6 Manus. And what Sukdev Goswami is telling Parikshit Maharaj that in this Kalp of Brahma, Shambhu is the first Manu. Yeah. Ajay?
Akutyam devhutyam cha duhitrostasya vai manoh dharmagyanopadesharth Bhagwan putratam gatah. Shambhu Manu had 2 daughters named Akuti and Devhuti. From their wombs, the Supreme Personality of Godhead appeared as 2 sons named Yagnamurti and Kapila respectively. Those sons were entrusted with preaching about religion and knowledge. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So what Sukdev Goswami is saying that Shambhu Manu, do you know whose son is Shambhu Manu?
Brahmaji.
Brahmaji. Yeah. So Shambhu Manu is son of Lord Brahma himself. And if you remember, we had read about the 2 daughters which Shambhu Manu had, Akuti and Devhuti. And long time ago, right? It has been 3 years we've been reading. But I don't know if you remember, whom did Devhuti got married to, do you know? So if you remember the Kardam Muni, right? So Devhuti got married to Kardam Muni and they had a son, Kapil, right? Kapil Muni, who was none other than the avatar of Lord Vishnu himself, right? So Kapil Muni was avatar of Lord Vishnu himself. And so this is what Sukdev Goswami is mentioning, that there were 2 daughters of Shambhu Manu, Akuti and Devhuti, and Yagnamurti and Kapil Muni appeared. We have already read about Kapil Muni. And so it says here, Devhuti's son was known as Kapil and Akuti's son was known as Yagnamurti. Both of them taught about religion and philosophical knowledge. So if you remember, Kapil Muni gave the whole Sankhya Vigyan. We read the whole Sankhya Vigyan about how spiritual knowledge can be obtained and what needs to be done for that, right? So we have already read that in Srimad Bhagavatam. Prem sir?
Kirtan Pura Bhagavata Kapilasya Nuvartitam Akhyase Bhagwan Yagno Yachkar Kuru Vaha. O best of the Kurus, I have already described in the 3rd canto the activities of Kapila, the son of Devhuti. Now I shall describe the activities of Yagnapati, the son of Akuti. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, yeah. So the activities of Kapil Muni was described in the 3rd canto. Which canto are we on now?
8th.
8th canto, right? So there was a 3rd canto where Kapil Muni was described. And now Sukdev Goswami is going to talk about Yagnapati, who is son of Akuti. Right? Hare Krishna, Tarun.
Hare Krishna. Vikaratah kama bhogeshu satarupa pati prabhu vejya vi prabhu विसृज्य राज्यस्य तपसे स्वभावयो वन्मा विश्यतः. Swayambhu Manu, the husband of Strupa, was by nature not at all attached to enjoyment of the senses. Thus he gave up his kingdom of sense enjoyment and entered the forest with his wife to practice austerities. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, so what is mentioned is the Swayambhu Manu, and if you remember, his wife Satrupa, right? And in those days, the Rajashri, they used to own the entire universe. They used to rule the kingdom of entire universe. So that was Swayambhu Manu. And then at some point, he left the kingdom. We had read about that. And then he entered the forest. And actually, I have a chart. Let me see if we can see this. So if you can see, Swayambhu Manu had married to Shatrupa. Yeah. They had two sons, Priyavart and Uttanpad. Yeah, if you remember, we read about Priyavart Maharaj, and also we read about Uttanpad Maharaj. And then Uttanpad Maharaj had a son, Dhruv, right? So Dhruv Maharaj, everyone knows about. We read the whole story of Dhruv Maharaj as well. Yeah. And then also we read about Prasuti, who got married to Maharaj Daksh. Yeah. And Daksh had got married to Sati, yeah, Parvati Mata's avatar, right? And they had 15 daughters, and then we read about the whole thing. Then Devhuti got married to Kardamuni, and Kardamuni, they had 9 daughters, if you remember, and 9 daughters got married to 9 different rishis, and how the universe expanded, right? So we read about that as well. So I just wanted to give you an idea about the Swayambhu Manu, because we already read about that, right? So we had 2 sons, Priyavrat Maharaj and Uttanpad Maharaj, and then Akruti, Prasuti, and Devhuti as daughters. Yeah. Hare Krishna, Sachin.
Hare Krishna. Sunandayam Varshashatam Padekena Dhuvam Sprishan Tapas Tapya Manastapo Ghorami Daman Vaha Bharat. O scion of Bharat, after Swayambhu Manu had thus entered the forest with his wife, he stood on one leg on the bank of river Sunanda, and in this way, with only one leg touching the earth, he performed great austerities for 100 years. While performing these austerities, he spoke as follows. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So what Sukdev Goswami is telling to Parikshit Maharaj, right, is that, and Ocean of Bharat is of course Parikshit Maharaj, Sunandayam, right, that is a Sunanda Nadi, right, Swayambhu Manu, on the bank of the river Sunanda, what did he do, right? Pad Ekena, he stood on 1 foot, Dhuam expression, right, only 1 foot touching the earth and 1 leg, right, up. He performed the austerities. Says tapo ghor tap, like we have read again and again in different cantos and chapters how even Lord Brahma did the whole tapasya for thousands of years. And like this, we read about so many of the rishis and munis. And here, Swayambhu Manu himself, right, he performed the great austerities for 100 years. And after performing these austerities, he spoke as follows, right? So what we are going to read now is what Swayambhu Manu himself is speaking. Manurvacha yena chetiyate vishvam chetiyate nayam yo jagrati shayadeshmi nayam tam veduse. Lord Manu said, the supreme living being has created this material world of animation. It is not that he was created by this material world. When everything is silent, the Supreme Being stays awake as a witness. The living entity does not know him, but he knows everything. Right? This is what Swayambhu Maharaj is saying. In the nice purpose, so let's read this, Mayur. Mayur, you are there? Ajay?
Here is the distinction between the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entities Nityanam, Chetanas, Chetanam Katha Upanishad 2.2.13. According to Vedic version, the Lord is the Supreme Eternal, the Supreme Living Being. The difference between the Supreme Being and the ordinary living being is that when this material world is annihilated, all the living entities remain silent in oblivion, in a dreaming or unconscious condition, whereas the Supreme Being stays awake as the witness of everything. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes, what is mentioned is when this world is annihilated, what happens? We stay silent in oblivion. We are like our souls, right? Stay with the super soul. And that's so there are three conditions. One is silent in oblivion, one is dreaming, one is unconscious. Right? There are three different conditions a soul or a human being, right? Or anyone stays, right? Like when we are awake, it says Jagriti Swapna, right? So we are awake in that kind of dreaming stage. I think it's mentioned in the next para. Let's read that. Rajeshri? You are on mute. Up.
This material world is created, it stays for some time, and then it is annihilated. Throughout these changes, however, the Supreme Being remains awake. In the material condition of all living entities, there are three stages of dreaming. When the material world is awake and put in working order, this is a kind of dream, a waking dream. When the living entities go to sleep, they dream again, and when unconscious at the time of annihilation, when this material world is unmanifested, they enter another stage of dreaming. At any stage in the material world, therefore, they are all dreaming. In the spiritual world, however, everything is awake.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. So like we are in the materialistic world, this is what happens. Spiritual world, there is no concept of time, right? And everything is always awake. Hare Krishna, Jyoti.
Hare Krishna, Gajen.
Krishna. Okay?
Yeah. Atmavasyamgadam Vishwam Yat Quinchit Nathyam Jagat Tena Dayavatena Bujitaha Ma Grudaha Kasya Svidhanam. Within this universe, the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his super soul feature is present everywhere, wherever there are animate or inanimate beings. Therefore, one should accept only that which is allotted to him. One should not decide to infringe upon the property of others. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. Basically, what is mentioned is the Supreme Personality of Godhead is present everywhere, as we have read this again and again. So read the purport, nice. Anilji?
Yeah. Having described the situation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as transcendental, Swambhava Manu, for the instruction of the sons and grandsons in his dynasty, is now describing all the property of the universe as belonging to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Manu's instructions are not only for his own sons and grandsons, but for all of human society. The word Manu, or in Sanskriti Manushya, has been derived from the name Manu. For all the members of human society are descendants of the original Manu. Manu is also mentioned in Bhagavad Gita 4.1, where the Lord says, Imam vivasvate yogam prokritan ham abhyayam vivaswan manave praha manur ikasakare bhavati. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. So we of course all know that we are descendants of original Manu, right? And also this is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita where Lord Krishna himself is saying, yeah, and we'll read the meaning here. Mayur.
I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god Vivasvan, and Vivasan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind, and Manu in turn instructed it to Ikas, what is that? Ikshvasku. Swambhu Manu and Vaivasvasta Manu have similar duties. Vaivasvasta Manu was born of the sun god. Vivasvan and his son was Ikshvaku, the king of the earth. Since Manu is understood to be the original father of humanity, human society should follow his instructions. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, so in what Lord Krishna mentioned in Bhagavad Gita Shlok 4.1, right, is that he has recited this Gita, right, this yoga, to the sun god Vivasvan, right? The Vivasvan, the Surya Bhagwan is Vivasvan. And the Surya Bhagwan Vivasvan instructed it to the Manu, who is the Vivasvat Manu. So Vivasvat Manu is the seventh Manu, right? Like as we know, there are 14 Manus in this day. Seventh Manu is Vivasvat Manu. Vivasvat Manu is the son of Surya Bhagwan himself, Vivasvat, right? Shwambhu Manu, the first Manu, son of Lord Brahma. And Vivasvat Manu is son of Vivasan, Surya Bhagwan. Yeah. So he instructed him to, and then Ikshvaku is who was the first king of the earth after Vivasvat Manu was son of Vivasvat Manu. Right? Just to understand the hierarchy. Right? So we'll just continue reading this. Tarun.
Yeah. Bhua Manu instructs that whatever exists, not only in the spiritual world, but even within this material world, is the property of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is present elsewhere as a super consciousness. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 13.3, Kshetrajanam Kapi Mam Vidhi Sarva Shestresu Bharata. In every field, in other words, in every body, the Supreme Lord is existing as the Super Soul. The individual soul is given a body in which to live and act according to the instructions of the Supreme Person. And therefore, the Supreme Person also exists within every body. We should not think that we are independent. Rather, we should understand that we are allotted a certain portion of the total property of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, so the important part which is mentioned here, right, is that in every body, the Supreme Lord is existing as Super Soul. Yeah. So as we know, we have read this again and again, that we have this Sthul Sharir, right? The gross body, which is made up of those 5 elements. What are those 5 elements?
Agni, Hava, Pani, और
Right.
Akash.
Jal and Vayu.
आकाश और धरती.
Right. Yeah. So Prithvi, Agni, Jal, Vayu, and Akash. Right. Those are the 5 elements the body is made up of. That is the Sthul Sharir, the gross body. Under gross body, we have the Suksham Sharir. And that is called the shuttle body. And that consists of what all 3 elements?
Man, Buddhi, and Ahankar.
Man, Buddhi, and Ahankar, right? So we got the Sthul Sharir, the Suksham Sharir, which is mind, which is Man, Buddhi, intelligence, Ahankar, self-ego. That is the Suksham Sharir. At the time of death, the Suksham Sharir along with the soul takes another shape, right? Only the Sthul Sharir gets merged into the earth. Under the Suksham Sharir, there is a soul, right? So we all understand that there is a soul, and that's what we are. We are the soul, Chetna, right? The consciousness, that's the soul. And the soul is related to the super soul. That's Lord Vishnu, Kshirodakshay Vishnu, right? That's how the soul is related to the super soul. So what is mentioned here is the supreme person, that is the super soul, also exists within every body, right? So we have the Sthul Sharir, the Suksham Sharir, the soul, and the super soul, right? So that's how we are related, is what is mentioned here. So can you reading this, Prem?
This understanding will lead to perfect communism. Communists think in terms of their own nations, but the spiritual communism instructed here is not only nationwide but universal. Nothing belongs to any nation or any individual person. Everything belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the meaning of this verse. Atma Vyasam Idam Vishwam. Whatever exists within this universe is the property of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The modern communistic theory and also the idea of the United Nations can be reformed, indeed rectified, by the understanding that everything belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord is not a creation of our intelligence, rather, He has created us. Atmavasyam idam vishwam ishvasyam idam sarvam. This universal communism can solve all the problems of the world. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anjali ji?
Sure. One should learn from the Vedic literature that one's body is also not the property of individual soul, but is given to the individual soul according to his karma. Karmana deva nitrena jantur deho pade. The 8,400,000 different bodily forms are machines given to the individual soul. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 18.61. Ishwarah sarva bhutanam हृदय से अर्जुना तिस्त्रति ब्रह्मयान सर्वा भूतानि यंत्र यंत्रोरुधानि मयया. The Supreme Lord is situated in everybody's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of the material energy. The Lord, as the Super Soul, sits in everyone's heart and observes the various desires of the individual soul. The Lord is so merciful that He gives the living entity the opportunity to enjoy varieties of desires in suitable bodies, which are nothing but machines. Yantra Rudhani Mayaya. These machines are manufactured by the material ingredients of the external energy, and thus the living entities enjoys or suffers according to his desires. This opportunity is given by the Super Soul. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Basically, what is being mentioned, right, is that even this body is also not the property of the individual soul, right? As we know, there are 8.4 million species, right? हम लोग बोलते हैं 84 लाख योनियों के बाद में human, right? So you get the human body, and then human body is a chance to go back to Godhead or do the devotional service. And it's, of course, we have read that in Bhagavad Gita, Yantra Maya. That is how a body is functioning. And depending on the karmas and the desires, we get different bodies, is what is mentioned in this paragraph, right? So we'll continue reading the next shlok. Rinaji?
यम पश्यति न पश्यतम यम पश्यति न पश्यन्तम चक्षुर्यस्य न रिष्यति तं भूतानिलयं देवं सुपर्णमुपधावत. Although the Supreme Personality of Godhead constantly watches the activities of the world, no one sees him. However, one should not think that because no one sees him, he does not see, for his power to see is never diminished. Therefore, everyone should worship the Super Soul, who always stays with the individual soul as a friend. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So what is mentioned in this shlok is, say, chakshu is the power to see, right? The eyes, the chakshu. Chaksurasya narishyati. Narishyati is like it never diminished, right? The Supreme Soul's power to see is never diminished. And everyone should worship the Super Soul, and he stays with the individual soul. So within us, we have the individual soul and then the connected to Super Soul. Yeah, it says here, Su Aparnu Updhavata. So, and again, a very nice purport. So let's read this and then we'll pause. Sachin?
Offering praise to Krishna, Srimati Kunti Devi, the mother of Pandavas, said, Alaksham Sarva Bhutanam antara bahir avasthitam. Krishna, who resides both inside and outside of everything, yet the unintelligent conditioned souls cannot see you. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that one can see the personality of Godhead through Jnana Chakshushan, eyes of knowledge. He who opens these eyes of knowledge is called a spiritual master. Thus, we offer our prayers to the spiritual master with following shlok. Om Anjanana Timirandhasya Jnana Jana Shalakya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual master, who, with the torchlight of knowledge, has opened my eyes, which were blinded by the darkness of ignorance. Gautamiya Tantra. The Guru's task is to open the disciple's eyes of knowledge. When the disciple is awakened from ignorance to knowledge, he can see the personality of Godhead everywhere because the Lord actually is everywhere. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So we cannot see the God directly, but once we get into the knowledge and bhakti, then how the chakshu opens up and then we are able to see the Supreme Personality of God and feel Him is what is mentioned here, right? Reena ji?
अंदंतरस्थ परमा परमा परमाणु Shayantarastham. The Lord resides within the universe. He resides within the hearts of all living entities, and He resides even within the atom. Because we lack perfect knowledge, we cannot see God, but a little deliberation can help us to see God everywhere. This requires training. With a little deliberation, even the most degraded person can perceive the presence of God. If we take into account whose property is the vast ocean, whose property is the vast land, how the sky exists, how the numberless millions of stars and planets are set in the sky, who has made this universe and whose property it is, we should certainly come to the conclusion that there is a proprietor of everything. When we claim proprietorship over a certain piece of land, whether individually or for our families or nations, we should also consider how we became the proprietors. The land was there before our birth, before we came to the land. How did it become our property? Such deliberation will help us understand that there is a supreme proprietor of everything, the supreme personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Tarun?
The Supreme Godhead is always awake. In the conditioned stage, we forget things because we change our bodies, but because the Supreme Personality of Godhead does not change his body, he remembers past, present, and future. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 4.1, Imam Vivasvate Yogam Proktvam Aham Avyavyam. I spoke the science of God, Bhagavad Gita, to the sun god at least 40 million years ago. When Arjuna inquired from Krishna how he could remember incidents that had taken place so long ago, the Lord answered that Arjuna was also present at that time. Because Arjuna is Krishna's friend, wherever Krishna goes, Arjuna goes. The difference is that Krishna remembers everything, whereas the living entity like Arjuna, being a minute particle of the Supreme Lord, forgets. Therefore, it is said, the Lord's vigilance is never diminished. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. We will complete this paragraph. Jyoti?
Sure. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 15:15. Sarvasya chaham hridi sanivisto mataha smrita nanam apohanam. Sure, the Supreme Personality of Godhead in His Paramatma feature is always present within the hearts of all living entities, and from Him comes memory, knowledge, and forgetfulness. This is also indicated in this verse by the word Suparna, which means friend. In the Shvetasvatara Upanishad, it is therefore said, Dva Suparna Sayuja Sakya Samanam Vruksham Parisasya Vajati. Two birds are sitting on the same tree as friends. one bird is eating the fruit of the tree and the other is simply observing. This observing bird is always present as a friend to the eating bird and giving him remembrance of things he wanted to do. Thus, if we take into account the Supreme Personality of Godhead in our daily affairs, we can see him or at least perceive his presence everywhere. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So I think we are going to pause here, or let's just complete this paragraph. Sachin?
The words Chakshur Yasya na Prishyanti mean that although we cannot see him, this does not mean that he cannot see us. Nor does he die when the cosmic manifestation is annihilated. The example is given in this connection that the sunshine is present when the sun is present, but when the sun is not present or when we cannot see the sun, this does not mean that sun is lost. The sun is there, but we cannot see it. Similarly, although we cannot see the Supreme Personality of Godhead in our present darkness, with our lack of knowledge, he is always present, seeing our activities. As the Paramatma, he is the witness and advisor, Upadrashta and Anumanta. Therefore, by following the instructions of the spiritual master and studying authorized literatures, one can understand that God is present before us, seeing everything, although we have no eyes with which to see him. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, so we are going to pause here. I think we are just running 5 minutes over, but we'll continue to read this tomorrow, and then we always hear a bhajan at the end. So because we had a break for I think almost 2 to 3 weeks, we are going to hear Ganesh Vandana today. Yeah, it's around 8 minutes. So let's just so we'll hear that and then we'll continue tomorrow. Yeah. So let's hear the Ganesh Vandana.
Krishna चिन्मयः त्वमानन्दमयस्त्वं ब्रह्ममयः त्वं सच्चिदानन्दाद्वितीयोऽसि त्वं प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मासि त्वं ज्ञानमयो विज्ञानमयोऽसि सर्वं जगदिदं त्वत्तो जायते सर्वं जगदिदं त्वत्तस्तिष्ठति सर्वं जगदिदं त्वयि लयमेष्यति सर्वं जगदिदं त्वयि प्रत्येति त्वं भूमिरापो नलो निलो नभः त्वं चत्वारि वाक्पदानि त्वं गुणत्रयातीतः त्वमवस्थात्रयातीतः त्वं देहत्रयातीतः त्वं कालत्रयातीतः त्वं मूलाधारस्थितोऽसि नित्यं त्वं शक्तित्रयात्मकः त्वां योगिनो ध्यायन्ति नित्यं त्वं ब्रह्मा त्वं विष्णुस्त्वं रुद्रस्त्वमिन्द्रस्त्वमग्निस्त्वं वायुस्त्वं सूर्यस्त्वं चन्द्रमास्त्वं ब्रह्म भूर्भुवस्सुवरो गणनादीं पूर्वमुच्चार्य वन्नादीं तदनन्तरं मनस्वारः परतरः अर्धेन्दुरसितं कालेन रुद्धम् एतत्तव मनस्वरूपं गकारः पूर्वरूपम् अकारो मध्यमरूपम् अनुस्वारश्चान्त्यरूपम् बिन्दुरुत्तररूपम् नादः सन्धानम् सगुंहिता सन्धिः सैषा गते च विद्या गणगऋषिः विसृज्गायत्री छन्दः श्रीमहागणपतिर्देवता ॐ गं गणपतये नमः एकदन्ताय विद्महे वक्रतुण्डाय धीमहि तन्नो दन्तिः प्रचोदयात् एकदन्तं चतुर्हस्तं पाशमङ्कुशधारिणं रदञ्जमलनं हस्ते बिभ्राणं मूषकध्वजं रक्तं लम्बोदरं शूर्पकर्णकं रक्तपाशसं रक्तगन्धानुलिप्ताङ्गं रक्तपुष्पैः सुपूजितं भक्तानुकम्पिनं देवं जगत्कारणमच्युतम् आविर्भूतं च सृष्ट्यादो प्रकृतेः पुरुषात् परम् एवं ध्यायति यो नित्यं स योगी योगिनां वरः नमः प्रमथपतये नमस्ते अस्तु लम्बोदराय एकदन्ताय विघ्नविनाशिने शिवसुताय श्रीवरदमूर्तये नमो नमः एतदथर्वशीर्षयोधीते स ब्रह्मभूयाय कल्पते स सर्वतः सुखमेधते स सर्वविघ्नैर्न बाध्यते स पञ्चमहापापात् प्रमुच्यते सायमधीयानो दिवसकृतं पापन्नाशयति प्रातरधीयानो रात्रिकृतं पापन्नाशयति सायं प्रातः प्रयुञ्जानो पापो पापो भवति सर्वत्राधीयानो पविद्धो भवति धर्मार्थकाममोक्षं च विन्दति इदमथर्वशीर्षमशिष्याय न देयम् यो यदिमोहात् दास्यति स पापीयान् भवति सहस्रावर्धनाद्यं काममधीते दन्तमनेन साधयेत् अनेन गणपतिमभिषिञ्चति स वाग्मी भवति चतुर्थ्यामनश्नं जपति स विद्यावान् भवति इत्यथर्वणवाक्यम् ब्रह्माद्यावरणं विद्यात् न बिभेति कदाचनेति यो दूर्वाङ्गुरे विजति स वैश्रवणोपमो भवति यो राजे विजति स यशोवान् भवति स मेधावान् भवति यो मोदकसहस्रेण यजति स वाञ्छितफलमवाप्नोति यस्याद्यः समिद्धिर्यजति स सर्वं लभते स सर्वं लभते अष्टौ ब्राह्मणान् सम्यक् ग्राहयित्वा सूर्यवर्चस्वे भवति सूर्यग्रहे महानद्यां प्रतिमासन्निधौ वा दत्त्वा सिद्धमन्त्रो भवति महाविघ्नाः प्रमुच्यते महादोषाः प्रमुच्यते महापापाः मायात्ममुच्यते स सर्वविद्भवति स सर्वविद्भवति य एवं वेद इत्युपनिषत् ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैः स्तुष्ट्वागुंसस्तनूभिः यजेम देवहिरैर्यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्ताक्षो वरिष्ठनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः.
All right, Hare Krishna. So it's nice Ganesh Vandana, slightly longer, but because we have taken such a big pause, I think it's okay to do it. And sorry for being over time today. But we'll again see you tomorrow at 9:30 p.m. EST. Yeah? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna, Jai Shri Krishna.
Jai Shri Krishna.